Dan Heyman, Senior Editor of Vicarious Magazine, and with me today, along with you fine folks, of course, is this. This is the 2025 Lexus LX flagship SUV, but it's not just any LX. This is the LX 700H. That H means this is an all-new hybrid powertrain. It's a twin-turbo 3.4-liter V6 engine with a EV motor to back it up. It's also got 457 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque fed to all four wheels through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, the other big news with the LX for 2025 is there's an all-new Overtrail Plus version. There's an Overtrail Plus 2-row and there's an Overtrail Plus 3-row. What Overtrail means is kind of like an overlanding vehicle from the factory to a degree, and we'll talk more about that as we drive. But I'm a little curious. The Overtrail makes sense for the smaller GX. People that do a lot of overlanding, the GX is a very good overlanding platform for them because it shares so much of its guts with the Toyota Land Cruiser. I'm not so sure somebody buying a flagship SUV, especially one that costs $136,000 or $138,000 in Overtrail spec, are going to feel about off-roading. I guess we'll have to drive to find out. Back to this car we have here though. This is the full load LX 700H executive VIP version, fully loaded, $171,000. So there you have it. Anyway, I'm looking forward to giving this thing a drive, so let's get to it. So here we are now at the wheel of the 2025 LX 700H, and this is that Overtrail model we were just talking about. It Overtrail means you've got special wheels and tires, 18-inch wheels with special Toyo tires that have been developed in concert with Lexus to give you the best off-roading performance possible. They've been given a little bit of a tread on their sidewall so that when you're on an angled surface, you've got more grip. You've got contrast color mirrors, contrast color door handles, grille as well on the Overtrail, so it looks a little more off-road ready than the standard LX 700H looks. And Overtrail is only available, I should say Overtrail Plus, because that's technically the name. It's only available with the hybrid engine. You cannot get an Overtrail with the gas LX 600 engine, so I want to keep that in mind. So this is the least expensive way to get into one of these. As I said in the intro, about $136,000. So while it's the least expensive hybrid LX you can get, it's still not a cheap vehicle by any means. But they do back all that up with these interior digs here. Great leather all over the place. 3 different kinds of wood finishes. I've got an open pore kind of ash finish here. There's another finish called Hatamo or something. I'll put the actual name on the screen there. That's like handcrafted by Japanese craftsmen. All sorts of really nice stuff in here. Tons of displays. 12.3-inch gauge cluster here, 12.3-inch infotainment system, 7-inch lower display here that gives you some climate controls, your secondary climate controls. It also gives you kind of a readout of what your wheels and axles are doing as you're off-roading and so forth. And I've got a heads-up display and a digital rearview mirror. So for a total of like 5 digital displays here and something like, what is that? Over 30 inches of display space on here. What I like about this is that while there are some climate controls happening here on the touchscreen, there's a lot of hard buttons down here as well and hard toggles. Much easier to operate while driving, easier to operate when you have gloves on and so forth. Big fan. Equally easy to operate on the drive modes, which are this big knob down here, kind of like what you'd see in a Toyota 4Runner. You have your low and high transfer case controls are also here. Wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, wireless charging, but if you prefer to charge with a wire, you've got 2 USB-C ports here and some more USB-C ports in the back as well. Massaging front seats, that's a first on the Lexus LX. Haven't seen that before. We've only seen massaging rear seats before. Heated and cooled front seats. So lots of interior features, and from the driver's seat, very comfortable seating position and a very tall seating position, which should come as no surprise to anybody. So that gives you a great view forward. Not only are you sitting quite high, nice, big, broad windshield in front of me here as well. So lots of view forward, and they've given you a nice gap between the wing mirrors and your A-pillar here to see through there to make it a little bit easier to place while off-roading, assuming you're going to be doing any off-roading in your $136 and change thousand SUV. That's for you to decide. Anyway, what I really like about this on the highway here is the steering. It is fantastic. This vehicle weighs in and around 6,000 pounds. I'll put the exact weights on here in a second. That's a lot of weight, but when you have a nice responsive steering like this, that weight is less kind of tough to deal with. And a vehicle that's big and heavy with aloof steering, you're never quite sure what's going on with the front wheels, and when you're a heavy car, it can be hard to kind of correct issues when you have all that weight going in the wrong direction. Here, none of that. The steering is direct. It's got a little bit of feel through it. The steering wheel is a good size. It's not too big, not too small. Really think it's fantastic. We were on some windy roads in this vehicle earlier, in the executive VIP version that we introed on. We were on some windy roads, and it handled that so very well. Power's there too. I mean, 583 pound-feet of torque. That is no joke. At 457 horsepower, that is quite good. But you want to keep in mind that while this is a hybrid, it's not really about efficiency. I mean, your combined fuel efficiency is something like 11.1 or 11 point some odd liters per 100 kilometers. That's not spectacular for a hybrid. But what you get with this hybrid is lots of power. And you can feel it. When you put your foot down, that 10-speed transmission drops a couple of cogs, or you do that yourself with these paddles right here. That's kind of cool. You really feel it. Passing is never a problem, whether you're at speed or whether you're coming onto a highway. Not a problem there either. Very good for power. It's not gonna feel like a sports car. It's still a body-on-frame truck. You still have, that frame does make its presence felt over certain bumps. You kind of feel the shutters and the jutters through the chassis, but not a lot. Most of it's handled quite well, but it would be handled even better if there was an air suspension option. This does not have that. It's got adaptable suspension, but it's a hydraulic setup. It is not an air setup. Air suspension, like what you find on a Cadillac Escalade, or pretty much most of the rivals of this vehicle, actually, really helps smooth things out. It can help level things out as well. That being said, we talked before about the steering and how that helps keep the weight in check. So too do the dampers here, the adaptive dampers. They are on hand as well to keep the body flat as possible through corners. You can only defeat physics so far. This is a tall, heavy vehicle, but really helps reduce body roll and helps reduce dive under braking, squat under acceleration as well. So this drives quite well for what is a big, hulking SUV. And that's fantastic. I still come back to my question, however, about this Over Trail Plus trim. I just don't see people buying this vehicle to go overlanding or off-roading in it. Land Cruiser, sure. Lexus GX, sure. Older GX, sure. Older Land Cruiser. Maybe even the older LX vehicles, which were all shared. They shared platforms with the North American Land Cruiser when we had it here. Yeah, sure, I can see that. But with this one here, I don't see it quite so much. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of off-roading now in this LX 700H. This is some real, pretty gnarly stuff. Have a look at the rocks I'm about to drive over here in this thing. I have it set to mud mode, even though I'm on some rocks here. And this thing is really clambering over this, really putting those Toyo tires to the test. The ones that are meant to give you extra grip have been designed to really roll over obstacles quite well, as these are doing right here. And that is impressive. Whoa, we're gonna go over some elephant tracks too. We're gonna be on a bit of an angle here. That's gonna test those grippy sidewalls of this LX 700. Pretty good. And now over this super steep and slippery mud hill here. We're gonna go over that, and look at that. Takes it no problem whatsoever. We're gonna put her a little bit right here. Get us back down. That is impressive. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I expected this big, huge, full-size luxury SUV to handle itself so well in this situation. Really putting that short wheelbase and those tires to the test here as we go through a bit of a water hazard as well. That is some pretty good stuff. No wheel spin, never had to gun it, give it any more throttle, never had to rock it out of anything, just plowed through that, no problem. Pretty good. And that's okay, but the only problem with that is if you want to get a hybrid version and you don't want all this off-roading garb, the tires, the different ride heights, the better approach angles, all that kind of stuff. If you don't want all that, but you still want the hybrid, you have to go all the way up to that VIP executive in Canada. That's $170,000. That is some pretty heady territory. The 600 gets an F-Sport model, gets other models a little more accessible. I'll put the price, the starting price for the LX 600 here in just a moment, but that makes sense, but you don't get the more powerful engine. So that's too bad. But strangely enough, if you're in this for towing, the 600 tows the same amount that the 700H does, 8,000 pounds. So at least if you want to tow, you can go with the gas LX 600 and you've got that covered. But if you want that more power for the more spirited drives or whatever, you have to, and you don't want overtrail, you got to go all the way up to the $170,000 level. I see overtrail on the GX. I really loved that truck when I drove it. This one here, though, I like it, but I don't think I need it to be in overtrail. And I've driven the gas LX 600 as well. Good vehicle, with the exception of, well, two things really, which are kind of one thing. Second and third row room. The second row is no roomier in the 2-row than it is in the 3-row, which is too bad because it's not super roomy in the first place. And the third row, as you'll see here in just a second on this clip, once you're sat in there, it's kind of like you're sitting on the floor. Like my knees are like at my ears almost. It's a bit extreme, but that third row is kind of vestigial, in my opinion. I'd go with the 2-row, but I wish there was a little more room in the second row. However, if you get the executive VIP one, you get a reclining second row to 48 degrees back. So a little more room in that one than there is in the non-VIP. I guess that makes sense. It's called VIP after all. That makes sense. So that's good. Wish there was a little more space back there for what is a pretty big vehicle. Not so big though. The wheelbase of this is actually the same as the wheelbase on the Land Cruiser. While back in the day, the LX and the Land Cruiser were linked, not anymore. The powertrains are different, the attitude is different, but the wheelbase is the same. What that means for this LX is actually the turning radius is quite good. Parking it is made that much easier. All that kind of stuff, better for around town, which, let's be honest, with this LX is what's important. Most of these are going to be spending most of their time in the city, in the mall parking lot, and so on. Make that as easy as possible on the user, and I think with this wheelbase, I think they have. Lots to like here. Love the steering. I like the powertrain. Styling is cool, especially the overtrail one. I'm a fan of that kind of rough and tumble styling. I love a lot of those things. I just wish you could get this powertrain in Canada without having to go to an overtrail or without having to go to the expensive executive VIP. I think that would be good, but then again, they only sold like 650 of these in Canada in 2024. This is not a volume selling vehicle for Lexus. It's a bit of a halo truck, and they are sure, as they told us, that the people buying these, they want the power and they want the overtrailness, they want all the things. They don't really think so much about the best place where the lines cross. They just want the full meal deal. So if that's the case, that's what Lexus is delivering with this and with the executive VIP. Anyway, thank you for this quick look, for tuning in rather to this quick look at the 2025 Lexus LX 700H. For Vicarious Magazine, I'm Senior Editor Dan Heyman. Have a look at our website, vicariousmag.com, for all your luxury SUV, your sports car, motorcycle needs. Have a look at our emotion section for answers to all your most pertinent questions about EV mobility and EV life and so on. Thanks for tuning into this video. We'll see you guys again soon.